I can turn this up a little bit. Okay, cool. What's up, everybody? Today, we are going to be talking about the LYNDANI MYENI burglary incident in Nu'uanu that happened April 14th, I believe. April 14th. Recently, we have, let me see. Make sure this is working. Recently, we have seen or heard, rather, the audio from the 911 tapes. So that's what we're going to be talking about. A lot of people have been talking about this incident since then, and I think that it's important for us to talk about what's changed and what the 911 audio does for us, what it does for the case, what it does for the investigation that the prosecutors are putting forth right now on the use of force, and what it does on the wrongful death suit that has been filed by the suspect's wife. So first of all, I just want to give a shout out to all my Patrons. You guys are the best. I already see you guys in the chat. What's up, guys? You guys are awesome, and I just want to say thank you. Don't forget, we got the book club tomorrow, 5 p.m. Hawaii time. You guys should have already received the notification and the links to the notes in the Patreon. All right, so I listened to the tapes. I listened to the 911 audio. 10.5 minutes long, the call was. I took notes. I broke it all down when I thought the important things were brought up during the phone call. And the big question is, now that we know what the call was and what the victim in this case, who is the female on the phone, who was staying at the residence, now that we heard what she said, does it change anything? Does it change anything on the crime that was committed? Does it change anything on the use of force? And the answer is no. It doesn't change a thing. Now, regarding how sad this case was, it does clarify for us. It does bring up more questions, but the questions are not about use of force. The questions are not about HPD's policies or procedures. The questions are, why was this guy, who by all accounts was a good man, who was a good father and a good husband, who was just with his wife and his kids, hung out on the North Shore all day, why did he drop her off and then go drive around to clear his head and then end up at this residence? Who the rumors have been circulating that this was a Airbnb. And I do think that this phone call sheds light on that situation, because you can actually hear LYNDANI in the background. And you can hear the lady who called saying what LYNDANI was talking about. So, yes, the 911 calls shed some light. They also create bigger holes that we have to fill. But it's all on the part of the suspect, in this case, LYNDANI MYENI. The call comes in at 8:09 p.m. on April 14th. And all we've known up until this point was that everything was normal that day. In the press conference that LYNDANI's wife gave, she said that everything was fine, that they had a great day on the North Shore, but that for whatever reason, LYNDANI wanted to clear his head and drive around. That's all we know up until that point. What happens next is, within 20 minutes, LYNDANI is trying to kill a cop. That's the hole that we have to fill. The body cam footage from officers 1 and 2, and everyone was complaining that 3 wasn't released yet. I don't know why 3 wasn't released yet, but it was what it was. Everyone was saying there was some kind of cover-up. Well, they released the 911 audio, and it was terrifying, the footage, the audio footage. I have a link in the chat. I'm sorry. I have a link in the comments, in the description of both the audio, the 911 audio, and the wrongful death suit that the wife is filing. So you can check that out when you get some time. What's up, Flying Hawaiian? What's up, Manny Soria? Jovan Lopez. How you been, Jovan? I know I've been gone. Kai Lyons, thanks for coming through. Thanks for the support. So let's see what we can tell from this footage. I broke it down. I got some notes. The call starts out like any other 911 call. Oftentimes they're parking complaints or they're, nuisance complaints, dogs barking, loud noises, false alarms, things like that. A lot of times people call because they have questions about the community or about a ticket they have. In Hawaii, people call 911 for everything. So it starts off typical. The dispatcher, which I got to say this. Mad love to all of my dispatchers out there. You guys are the lifelines of the police. They all know it. We all knew that the dispatchers were our lifeline. And they have a stressful job. They have to hear these things going on and they can't do anything. To hear your officers that you're responsible for in a gunfight or getting assaulted or calling for help on the radio is incredibly traumatic. And many of the dispatchers had PTSD from it. I might say all of them, just like I think all cops had PTSD. All cops in major cities, all the cops I knew in Honolulu have easily some PTSD symptoms. But that's the nature of how our bodies work. They're surrounded by trauma. So in this case, I want to say thank you to the dispatcher who was on that call. She was fantastic. So I have all my time markers. At about 29 seconds, the dispatcher finally gets the address from the caller. There's not really a language barrier, but the caller has a heavy accent, but can understand what the dispatcher's saying. The dispatcher can understand what she's saying for the most part. The problem with the communication is that the victim in this case, or what we would call the complainant on the burglary, she is hysterical. She's super scared. She's breathing heavy. She's hyperventilating. She's squealing a lot as she's talking. She can't get things out. And then throughout the call, LYNDANI's actions either calm her down at first because she hears a voice on the phone, which is the dispatcher, and she starts to calm, and the dispatcher's doing a good job of calming her down, and he's not being what she would consider threatening in that moment. He had stopped his advances, which apparently had happened earlier. So she was calm, and then at other parts of the phone call, she gets all worked up again because of how he acted. Whatever that was, walking towards the door, walking away from the door. That happened a couple times. It was at 36 seconds that the complainant or the 911 caller actually tells the dispatcher, he said Lyndon, and he's from South Africa. So we know at 36 seconds into the call that she knows that this guy's name is Lyndon, and he's from South Africa. Aloha Hawaiian Dragon from Hilo. What's up, Stephanie Kazuma? Shaka, back to you, my friend. At a minute and 49 seconds, so basically a minute and 10 seconds later, the dispatcher has been trying to get a description of the suspect in this case. That is crucial for police officers. So the dispatcher knows this, and the dispatcher is working hard to get the description. When the call comes in, all she knows is the lady says, somebody's in my house and he won't leave. And she's real hysterical, and she's trying to get calmed down, and the dispatcher's trying to walk her through it. And she says, I need you to tell me what he is. Is he white? Is he black? Is he Asian? I'm trying to get a description. Finally, after like a minute of trying to coach her through this, because she was like hyperventilating, the lady finally says, he's black. The dispatcher says, what kind of clothes is he wearing? I need to get a description. What color shirt is he wearing? She said he's wearing the dispatcher says, is he wearing a white shirt? Because I think she thought that the caller had said white shirt. The caller says, no, he has a black shirt. Then she tries to get the description of the pants he's wearing, all that good stuff. At 2:15, 2 minutes and 15 seconds into the call, she says he's wandering in the house, and she starts to freak out. That's when she gets super excited and super scared. And she starts to say, he's wandering around in the house. You could tell that at this point, this is where things turned for the caller. The dispatcher was trying to ask her questions like, where is he in the house? Like, what is he doing right now? Can you go hide? Can you walk out? Can you get out of the house? Which is important. If somebody calls in to dispatch and says that there's a burglary in progress in my house, there's a burglar in my house, the first thing the dispatcher is going to do is, can you get out of the house safely? Because that makes it real simple. You get out of the house, he can't hurt you. In this case, the caller couldn't do that. At 2 minutes and 50 seconds, she tells the dispatcher that he's about 30 years old. And I think he was 29, so it's right on. At 3 minutes and 16 seconds, she becomes super terrified. She gets asked by the dispatcher to go outside. That's when she panics. She thinks that LYNDANI's going to leave because the dispatcher said, where is he? And she said, oh, he's walking outside. But really what he was doing is he's walking towards the door. I'm speculating, because the very next thing that happened is she starts to freak out, where he's walking towards the door, but he doesn't. He stops in front of the door and turns around or whatever. Whatever he did got her super upset. She was really scared and all worked up. That's when at 3 minutes and 39 seconds, she tells the dispatcher he's close to the front door. And you hear the dispatcher say, I understand. So you can't get out because he's by the door. And I also hear some other person inside talking that I'm not sure if it's LYNDANI or if it's, but it's definitely, it sounds like a male voice, or if it's someone else that was staying with her. But in either case, you could hear a male voice. At about 4 minutes and 5 seconds into the call, officers hadn't shown up yet. She starts to tell the dispatcher that he followed me into the community, that she thought he had followed me. So for whatever reason, maybe she'd seen the car, and based on the timing of when she walked in the house, he walked in the house right after. So I'm speculating right now based on my experience in this, so take that with a grain of salt, is that she came home, he walked in the house right after her. And for whatever reason, he was staying in an area of the house between her and the door. That could be frightening. Picture yourself now. You're a woman. I don't know how old this woman is, but if I had to guess, I'd say 50. And you walk in your house, whether it's your house or it's an apartment you're renting or it's an Airbnb, whatever, it doesn't matter. You walk in and you turn around and this dude walks in the house between you and the door and starts talking to you. I don't care if even at that time, he's saying, my name is Lindani. I'm from South Africa. Here's a basket of flowers. I don't care what he's saying. Just go through this situation in your head. I don't care if he has a stack of money and he tries to hand you money. If a man walks into the house that you're staying in, whether it's yours or rented or whatever, but you don't know him and you did not give him permission, and he stands there and won't leave, it doesn't matter what he's doing. That's terrifying. Especially for a woman who, based on what I saw on the body cam footage, is half of his size. I would be willing to bet the woman weighs 110 pounds or less, and he's 220. So quite literally half his size. So in the footage, you can hear police officers arrive somewhere between 4 minutes and 4 minutes and 54 seconds. Because at 4 minutes and 59 seconds, you hear the victim, the complainant, say, that's him. And so if you've watched the body cam footage, put yourself back there. That's when the officer, who I believe is Officer 1, is walking up the left side of the driveway. It's a circle drive. And you see the woman on the left, under the light by the front door, say, that's him. And she pointed to him. You can hear the officer say, where? And where he went. And about 35 seconds, there's yelling. You could hear the yelling in the background. You hear another gentleman in the house with her near the phone say, he's attacking the cop. That's when the woman freaks out, because she hears this guy who's apparently watching out a window tell her he's attacking the cop. He's attacking the cop. Her heart starts beating. She freaks out. You can hear her breathing heavily, squealing, screeching. You can barely make out a word. She's having a full-blown like freak out moment, panic attack, call it what you will. She's code black, and I imagine at this point she's trying to hide or something. You can hear a lot of stuff with the phone, like breathing into the phone, scratching, rubbing, like she's trying to go somewhere. You actually hear at some point the dispatcher ask her or tell her to go hide somewhere. We'll go hide in the house, because you could hear she's freaking out. 2 seconds after you hear the male voice in the background say he's attacking the cops, you can actually hear the shots go off. That's when you hear the dispatcher say, oh my God, gunshots. She's probably telling her supervisor. Typically how it works in the call center is there's like picture like a well in the middle. Picture like what would you call it? Cathedral seating, where you can look down into like a pit. And just picture like the dispatcher saying to her supervisor, shots fired, shots fired. Because they have certain protocols they have to follow when they hear shots fired, or there's a 10:15, there's a emergency call for a police officer. So you hear say, oh my God, and then shots fired to somebody. I'm assuming her supervisor. About a minute goes by where the dispatcher is trying to calm down the lady because she's freaking out. People do crazy things when they're freaking out. So the dispatcher, it's very important that there's a lot of things happening. First of all, she's updating the file on the computer with everything that the lady's saying. And if she's hearing shots fired or she's whatever, she's typing all this stuff in, hitting enter, and it's going into the file where there is a dispatcher. So remember, the person on the phone is the call taker. And then there's a dispatcher who's dispatching the police officers. So this call taker's typing all this stuff. It's going in the file where the dispatcher who's in charge of this area, it's a huge area, by the way, like the entire district. District 1 goes from Liliha. This is District 5. But District 1 goes from Liliha to Puno. All the way up Tanlas. All the way down to the water. It's massive. Tons of people. Kalihi is packed with people. Kalihi's huge. Think Nu'uanu all the way up to the tunnel. From Liliha, basically to just before Salt Lake. It's crazy. Picture like Sand Island all the way up to the tunnel on the up to Like. District 5 is huge. This one dispatcher is in charge of 25 policemen. And it's going off. Calls are like this, yo. Calls come in so fast, it's insane, especially in District 5. She's managed. There's other calls, man. There's like thefts and robberies and assaults and arguments and domestics and traffic stops, which are mad dangerous for policemen. She has 25 lives that she is in charge of for the whatever time she's scheduled. I don't know what the exact times were, but it could be like 30 minutes, right? And then she gets like a 20-minute break because it's so stressful. She's literally has a bunch of screens and she's just sending people to places. And this whole time, 25 officers are calling in saying, you know, I think it was nighttime. So it was third watch. So 3 Bravo 565. I got a traffic stop. And she's putting off 3 Bravo 565 at a traffic stop at Rose Street and Middle Street. Meanwhile, there's 6 other traffic stops. People are on calls, burglary calls, things like that. And she's got to be listening to these officers. Then this call comes in. So all of a sudden, as soon as she goes on the air and as soon as she types in shots fired, that dispatcher who gets that update is updating we call them the CADs, is updating the file with shots fired. She's telling the responding officers, because people are coming down at this point. When there's a burglary in progress, suspect is still on the property. I don't care. There was 3 officers there. There were 8. There was 22 more coming. Like that's how they roll. And that's how they got to roll because you never know what's going on. Whoever was off on a call, they're stuck. They're stuck. Whoever's got a guy arrested and they got him down at CRD and booking, they're stuck. They can't go nowhere. But if you could break away, you're breaking away. As soon as you hear burglary, suspect's still there. She requests an ambulance at about 6:47 into the call. And then at about 8:21 into the call, she tells the victim to go outside because the police are requesting that she comes out. And then it ends at about 10:20. You hear the officer who responds, one of the officers who's responding. There will be many officers on that case. You hear one of the officers say, "Has he ever been here before? Do you know who he is?" And you hear her say, "No, I don't know." So let me get to some of these real quick. Pamela Perry, aloha. Skyline Leather. Subject entering a home when the suspect knows the residents are home. That increases the urgency of the call. It's a home invasion from Andrew in Omaha, Nebraska. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. And in Hawaii, we call that a burglary. It's a burglary in the first degree. Now, there are two, when you think of what kind of crime this is, you have to separate this into 3 parts. What did the call come in as? What did the officers believe was happening after their assessment? And the third one is, what was actually the disposition of the crime? What was the crime that was put in the report? All 3 of those can be different and very, very commonly are. Here's why. The person calling 911 does not know the law. The dispatcher only knows what the person calling gives her or him. There's some awesome male dispatchers out there too. But then the officer initially arrives on scene, and he has a very, very short time to assess and determine what he thinks is happening. And then the officer pulls a report number for that crime when he has determined what elements of the crime exist and that he has probable cause for. So all three of those can be different, or they can all be the same. They're rarely always the same. You might hear somebody say, somebody's robbing my house. In Hawaii, that does not exist. Someone can't rob a house, right? So very early in police academy, they teach you that based on what a victim or complainant might say, you cannot classify a crime based on that. The public typically does not know the elements of the crime and the different crimes that we have in Hawaii, the classifications. Oftentimes, someone would run up to me and say, I just got robbed. That's important because robbery in the first degree is the highest level of crime that you can have in Hawaii besides murder. Robbery in the first, kidnapping, sex assault in the first degree, those are all the most serious crimes outside of murder. Murder has its own classification. Murder first, murder second. So I've had people run up to me and say, hey, I just got robbed. Well, that's a violent crime. When there's a violent felony involved, like a robbery or a burglary, your gun, chances are, is going to be pulled out should you run into the suspect. That's why we have something called felony traffic stops. A felony traffic stop isn't a traffic stop that's a felony because the guy did something in his car that was a felony. The felony traffic stop is a traffic stop that you're doing on somebody because of a felony they committed. A dangerous suspect, like they robbed a bank. All the witnesses say they jumped in a red Camaro and fled eastbound. You see a red Camaro fleeing eastbound. Two suspects that match description. You do a traffic stop. Your gun comes out. You order them out of the car, hands on the roof. They put the keys on the hood or whatever your policy is for your department. They get out of the car where you could see their hands. They walk backwards. They get down on the ground, put their hands behind their back, cross their feet. That's called a felony traffic stop. Departments allow their officers to do those things because of the danger involved in a particular crime. This burglary is a lot like a felony traffic stop. It's a felony stop, but it has nothing to do with traffic yet. If he would have gotten his car, that would have been a felony traffic stop. So a lot of people are like, why were their guns drawn already? Because that's what we are trained to do, and that was the appropriate course of action for the policeman. The danger is too high for them to not draw their weapon. Policemen are trained. They know when they can shoot and when they can't. And this officer was so well trained that he drew his weapon when he was supposed to, and then when being attacked, did not shoot the suspect. He was showing restraint. He was showing de-escalation. Everything that everyone's asking for, this officer did. So the fact that this call came in as the lady says to him, there's a man in my house who followed me in the house and he won't leave. I don't know him. He won't let me leave. She said, a man in the house won't let me leave. That's a burglary. Call taker says burglary in progress, suspect on scene. The dispatcher gets that, sends that to whoever the beat officer was or whoever's working that sector that day. He gets it to pop up on his computer. She calls him on the radio. 3 Mike 560. I got a burglary in progress. Suspect is on scene. Black male, black shirt. That's all the officer knows. At this point, he doesn't have a choice. He shows up on scene. His gun comes out. Why? Because the Supreme Court has determined through case law that due to the danger of apprehending burglary felony suspects in a crime that would involve tools or often involves weapons, that they are allowed to draw their weapons. If I pull up to a burglary in progress, suspect's on scene, the gun's coming out. Does it mean I'm going to shoot him? No. That's the thing people got to understand. Drawing your weapon doesn't mean you're going to shoot a dude. You draw the weapon so that you can assess and make the scene safe, which is your first job as a police officer. You make the scene safe. That video we saw of that white officer that shot the Ma'Khia Bryant, that's why when he showed up and saw her with a gun or with a knife, his gun came out. She was going to stab people. He cannot allow that to happen when he's there. That's what he does. They called him because somebody had a knife. He showed up, somebody had a knife. He stopped that person from stabbing someone. Good job, officer. This is how this case was going in Nu'uanu. Then there's other things involved. You have prior crimes that are being committed. There were like burglaries happening, I think 5 within a 1-mile area recently. And that's a big area for burglaries. Anybody who lives in Nu'uanu knows what I'm talking about. So, unfortunately, people in Hawaii work a ton. They're always gone. Both people work. The husband and the wife typically work, even into their old age. So homes are always empty. Criminals know that. They cut the screen, remove the jealousy because they're old homes, hop in the house, take everything. So it happens a lot. And if this is the sector of the person that was working, he knows that. So he was used to what was going to happen. He shows up on scene, guns out. Everything has been good up until this point. Okay. How's it, Pamela? Thanks for coming through. Melanie Isla, thank you for breaking it down. My boyfriend said the other male voice was the husband. Watching the police cam video, she doesn't sound terrified. I was thinking she knew him somehow. Right. In the cam video, you don't get to see everything that she was saying, but you could hear how terrified she was, yeah? And maybe to the untrained eye, but when I watched that footage, I heard it in her voice. And it takes a lot to point a suspect out that's that much bigger than you and can still get to you before the officer could help. Like, there's a lot going through your head. And she said she didn't know him. That doesn't mean he didn't know that house. It is possible he'd been there before. We don't know. You know what I mean? We just know that girl didn't know him. And maybe that's okay, because let's say, okay, worst case scenarios, let's take this to the extreme and work this principle. What if this was an Airbnb? What if he had stayed there just the night before and was just going to pick up his shoes? It doesn't matter. That does not change what the officers are going to do, because they don't know that. He still was committing a crime. He may not have known it when he walked into that house. I have to reiterate here that LYNDANI MYENI was not shot because he broke into a house and stole something. The crime of burglary does not justify shooting someone. So everyone that's throwing that out there, we get it. No one's saying that it justified the shooting. He was not shot because he broke into the house. He was shot because he tried to kill a policeman. I don't know how to make this any more simple. I'm reading some articles of people saying that he didn't know that they were policemen. At what point do you not know that the man you're sitting on, who's in a uniform with a badge and patches that say police in bright yellow and a shiny badge with a police car next to you, do you not know that that's a policeman? Now, if he was out of his mind, there's a possibility he didn't know. But he did not get shot because he knew they were policemen. It doesn't matter. He got shot because he tried to kill a policeman. That's it. As sad as these circumstances are, let's say the best case scenario, he was there to do something good. And he thought that the people who pulled up were trying to kill him. That's the best case scenario here, right? For LYNDANI MYENI. Is that he went there to give a gift or to return something that he accidentally took from the Airbnb. And then when he was walking away, thought he was getting jumped by her friends or whatever. Best case scenario for him, right? It doesn't matter. He was trying to kill a policeman. Maybe he wasn't trying to kill him, but he was in the act of killing him. With the blows that he was giving that officer to cause unconsciousness and his size and his strength and him groaning and yelling, had he not been approached by the officer with the taser and the third officer, he never would have gotten off that officer. And that's how it has to be treated. What do you say? Maybe he'll get off him, give him a few more. He couldn't take a few more. Some people are criticizing the training of the officers. Well, why didn't they just karate chop him? Why didn't they VNR him? When you have a dude that big who's creating that kind of devastation on an officer's face to where he's going to be in the hospital for a long time or out of work for months, he has a gun in play. The gun was in play. So they went to taser in an incredible show of strength and restraint. They went to taser, ineffective. They literally crawled up the use of force continuum. We have a use of force continuum that you go up based on the suspect's force. Police officers in the state of Hawaii are allowed to be one step above. It's called one up. Policemen are allowed to one up the suspect. So, a police officer is on scene and the suspect tries to punch the policeman. The police officer is not bound at that same level of force, just punching back. For good reason, and I agree with it. The policeman's job is not just to survive, it is to apprehend the bad guy. He has to overcome whatever force he's being given and detain this person. Do you know how much harder it would be in an MMA fight if you had to put handcuffs on your opponent? Think about that. If your job was to put handcuffs on the opponent, it would be much more difficult. Knocking him out is much easier. And I might argue you'd have to knock him out to get the cuffs on. So police are allowed one step up. The suspect wants to fight. The police can go to his tools, pepper spray, baton, even taser, depending on how this guy's acting. But that suspect now has a weapon like a baseball bat or a knife or a glass vase in his hand, whatever. The suspect is at a weapon level. The policeman is not bound by staying with an equal use of force. He doesn't now still just use his baton. He's allowed to go one up. That one up is a taser. and your gun. Less than lethal use of force overlaps the area where the gun is allowed. So there could be a call with a knife. We have multiple less than lethal options, right? We have a beanbag shotgun. It's called a less lethal. It's usually orange so that you know it's less lethal and you don't shoot a guy. And that's for long range and the suspect has a weapon. You don't want him to get close to you because you'll have to shoot him. If he's got a bat and he's within 20 feet, my gun's coming out. Facts. If he's got a machete, a big stick, and he's within 21 feet, my gun's coming out. There will be less lethal coverage by someone else because we work as a team. And if there's multiple officers on site, you're always covered by lethal force. If all three of those officers drew a taser, they're doing something wrong. You always want that lethal force coverage. Here's why. You're less lethal if it ends up in the hands of the suspect. Now you need lethal force. Because if he shoots you with the taser, pepper sprays you, you're out of the fight. You can't see. You are completely immobilized by the taser. He takes your gun. So you have officer with his gun, and you still have that officer with the taser in this case in Nuuanu. And when he tased him, it didn't work, and he attacked him. Now you have these long strings of 50,000 volts of electricity that could hit the officers, incapacitating them. So that's how the use of force continuum works. And that was appropriate in this case. Okay. Hawaiian Dragon said, bullets kill, tasers fail. What about tranquilizer guns? Kyles McGee. I'm in District 7 right next door. Yeah, District 7 starts at Punahou and goes all the way to the east side. Kalama Valley, all the way to make the turn. That turns into District 4 in Waimanalo and goes all the way up to Kahuku and back all the way down to Kaneohe. The entire windward side, basically. Kyles McGee, does that district include Chinatown? No, Chinatown is District 1, or we call town. However, Chinatown, or town, Waikiki, and East Oahu all meet from the main station and then head out to work. Lowly Grinder says, I'm from Natal, born and raised. The amount of murder and crime that happens there makes the entirety of America seem crime-free, and rural justice usually goes from whipping to tire burning. You know, I hear that a lot, and I think that's a valuable perspective. I think people need to see or hear from people like you, especially in a time like this. When you see the crime in Manila or Mexico City or 180 countries around the world, Sao Paulo, Rio, then you'll see what real crime is in a city. They all put New York City to shame as far as crime rates. Not even the same. Not even close. Not even the same scale. That's a good perspective. Hawaiian Soul. Hi, Doug. You missed notification. My bad. I tried to put one out there. Kyle's Mickey said, I've had deal with 2 burglaries, 1 criminal property damage, several assaults over the past year. Yeah. That happens in Hawaii. Pamela Perry said, did the wife ever say why he was there? He was only here since January. Yeah, he'd only been here for basically 4 months, just over 4 months. She did say that they were waiting for his green card because they had gotten married. And I believe that they moved here so she could continue to do her work so that she could get a job. I could be wrong. If anybody knows, please correct me, but that's what I remember. Cosmic, you said everybody works 2 to 3 jobs. Yep. I love stonks. There probably was some misunderstanding. Myeni didn't attack the lady, but who knows what he was doing there. Exactly. He did not attack her. From all accounts, he did not steal anything. And from all accounts, he left on his own free will. But let me be clear. None of those things affected the reasonableness of the use of force by those officers. That's what's sad about this thing. We don't know what Myeni was doing. The guy might have been going through something really rough. He might have been having an episode. He might have been, who knows, like trying to plan some like anniversary weekend for his wife. You know, I'm thinking best case scenarios here. But none of that affects whether or not the policemen were justified in shooting him. And when I say justified, I say that in a very sterile way. But it goes past justification. Policemen do not want to shoot people. And you hear me say this on this channel all the time, and it probably gets old. I've only known 2,100 cops. And I don't know anyone who wants to shoot somebody. Not only because they care about people and they have hearts, but because it will flip their life upside down and their career. You get drugged through the mud. No one wants to do that. Heinz Soul said, have you heard anything on toxicology? I have not. That'll be interesting. And let's say worst case scenario comes back, he was drunk and high. Didn't change anything. And let's say best case scenario, he was on no drugs. Like it just doesn't change anything for how this went down. It does make it more sad. And it does make more questions on a personal level. It will give more questions to the children and to the wife and the people that loved LYNDANI. Right? It's got to be tormenting, honestly now, for his wife. Like, everyone can say what they want about the things that she'd posted, things that she said. I watched the press conference. I thought it was despicable what the attorney was saying and what the wife was saying. But I'm empathizing because she just lost her husband and the father of her children. Doesn't matter. Let's say he was a bad guy. Let's say he really went there to like commit a crime. It doesn't change. She didn't know that. Possibly. And all of a sudden her life is upside down. It'd be the same as if I died and my wife had to raise my kids by herself. Especially if we were having a good time and then 20 minutes later I'm dead under some weird circumstances, walking into an Airbnb. Like, what this changes is the questions for the kids now and when they grow up in the future, and for the wife. But this does not affect the case. Lowly Grinder, one of the highest reasons for suicide in South Africa is being a police officer. Wow. Speaking of that, I do want to take time right here to say rest in peace, Elton. You'll be missed, and you are loved, and any police officers out there that are watching, if you want to talk, if you need to get something off your chest, or you just want to have somebody to talk story with, you can IM me on social media and I'll call you up. We haven't. Police suicide rates are very high right now. And police don't feel like they can talk to people who aren't policemen sometimes, even counselors, because of things that they've seen and the things that they've heard. And it's a very precarious situation. So if you're out there and you need somebody to talk to, reach out to somebody. And if you don't have somebody, you can reach out to me. And I mean that. And I will take the call and I will be there. But I'd find it hard to believe that there aren't others out there that would help you or that would talk to you or that care, because they know what you're going through. And I know what you're going through. And so hit me up. His wife is trying to pull the race card. I saw that coming a mile away. Yeah, that's an easy one for the lawsuit. But I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt if she really believes that that's what's happened, which based on social media posts, I think that's what she believes in that narrative, which would make sense. So if she does believe in that narrative, I see why she did it. I disagree with her, but she's trying to get money. And mark my words, she will. She will win a lawsuit against the Honolulu Police Department because they settle. They will not fight it. She will make $1 million on this. Why that sucks is because the taxpayers pay for it. But she'll be taken care of. So like you can look at it either way. And that's what the Honolulu Police Department gets for settling. It's the same thing for no pursuit policies. If they know they're not going to get caught, they're going to run. And if they know they can sue and you're not going to fight it, they're going to sue. And taxpayers are going to pay. Aloha, Cynthia. It's all good. You're here now. Dylan Duarte said, I've always had the understanding that if I assaulted a police officer, I go to jail forever or die. Probably not go to jail forever or die. Like 99.99%, that would never happen. I've been assaulted 20 times. The guy just goes to jail. And 50-50 if he even stays there the rest of the night. Because the prosecutors don't take the assault on police officer cases. Very easy. They turn him into resisting arrests and the guy gets out. Sometimes it sticks. But yeah, that's how I teach my kids. Don't assault a policeman. Or you're playing with your life. How about this? Don't assault anybody. Lily Grinder says, the wife is saying him entering the house and taking off his shoes is a cultural thing. That is a lie. If he did that in South Africa, he'd be shot, and the shoes thing is only for Muslim homes. Wow. You said you were from Natal. Yeah, I don't know anything about that culture, to be honest with you. But let's do it. Let's play this out. Remember, the only way that you can test a concept or a principle is by taking it to the extremes. If it doesn't work on the extremes, then it's a weak concept. So you got to go to the best and worst case scenarios. Let's say best case scenario, he walked in, he bowed, took off his shoes, and presented a gift. That lady was freaked out, called the police, and he wasn't supposed to be there, and he wouldn't leave. And you can hear him on the phone. He doesn't even walk out the door until 3 minutes and 50 seconds into the phone call. Who knows how long she waited before she called? She had all this information about him before she called. So I'm willing to guess at least a minute before she called, he was in that house. So we're talking probably 5 minutes. He won't leave the house. And he finally leaves. So even under the best case scenario, it doesn't matter. The policemen show up. He's on scene. Gun comes out. He attacks the policeman, and he is in the process of killing him or seriously injuring him. Serious bodily injury on a police officer, you can use lethal force because there's a very thin line. And then add the fact that there's a gun in play. Sandman said, how do you feel about Karen Garner story? I don't know the Karen Garner story. I'll have to look that up, Sandman. I'm going to write that down. Karen Garner. Sorry, I've been real busy, so I haven't had much chance to be in the news. Okay. BT, someone said we are losing 100 officers a month. They are tired of this crazy BS being pushed by the liberal left, defund the police. Okay. I don't know about the national rates, but I did hear somebody say that it's alarming how many people are leaving the police department. Can't blame them. You know what I would tell them? Leave. Get out. If you're in those cities that are going through all this stuff and that's how people are acting, get out. It ain't worth it. The department's going to stab you in the back because it's run by the city. And the city is typically full of cowards who want to look right. So when a big group of people say this is what we want, they give it to them. But if you're in those cities that they don't, you're in a better place. But the city of Detroit, it ain't worth it, bro. What are you making? $700 a week? Tops. It's not worth it, man. It's just not worth it. Pamela says the whole thing as to why they both were here sounds sketch. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, people have crazy reasons for being in Hawaii anyway. Apparently, she's from here. She's from the North Shore, I think. She's from Kahuku or Haleiwa, and they moved back here so she could get work. And let's be honest, you'd rather be here than South Africa. Who wouldn't? So, like, to me, it makes sense. You'd want to be in Hawaii. So I respect the wife and her emotions. Sounds like the lawyers are the ones that are putting ideas in her head. Probably. Nons, you're probably right. Because, man, she just got a husband that died. She's just feeling it. It's real to her. And then they're telling her all this stuff. That's how they act. Like vultures, bro. But then it's a two-edged sword, right? Because when you're the one that gets violated, those are the guys you want. Like, I know police officers that have either hired Miles Bronner or Michael Green to defend them. And Miles Bronner and Michael Green are the same ones that sue the police departments in these kind of cases. So, like, you know what I mean? You go with the ones that win. It makes sense. So I get that. BT said lawyers need to be held accountable. That's an interesting point. But I wonder, like, it's tricky when you're giving legal advice, yeah? There's confidentiality and all this other stuff. Naomi Nishida Augustin. Hi, Doug. Hi, Naomi. Nan says, why did the police settle? Did they not defend their actions in this case? No, absolutely not. They won't. Not the police. You heard that Major Nagata, and he handled it well, if you ask me. I like how he acted in that interview. He said make no mistake, they were fighting for their lives. Don't twist this into something it's not. That felt good to hear because too many times I've heard command fold and buckle under the pressure of public opinion. And I worked for that dude, and he was a good dude. Man, I loved when he did that. That made his guys feel good, like he's there for us. We did nothing wrong here. Do not let this narrative go about this. And he didn't. So I appreciate that. So the policemen, they will fight it. But the city and county will settle. And the police commission won't help. I only met a police commissioner twice. Once when I graduated and once when I received my award. And those are the only time I ever met with them. But none of them were police officers. They were like businessmen and politicians. And I never heard a good story about a police commission ruling. They will settle, mark my words. Nate Fleming, what's up, bro? He says, oh, crap. How's it, everyone? Sean, it wouldn't look good to see HPD fighting this kind of case and then trying to tell a woman her husband deserved to die. Even if HPD were in the right, I think they were, they may have a reputation to uphold. Yeah, it definitely would not look good. And they would never do that. Police, HPD doesn't have, that's not their job, and that's not where they work. They don't work in opinion. Police officers work in they work in the realm or in the world of what they can prove, of evidence, of probable cause, of reasonable suspicion. That's where they work. All they can say is that LYNDANI MYENI did not have permission to be on the property. The caller said she didn't want him there and he wouldn't leave. And then he attacked a policeman and then he was shot. So they would never say that he deserved it, because I don't believe anyone deserves to die. There may be actions that they commit that justify someone taking their life. But to make words like deserved is misguided. So HPD would never do that. So keep in mind, HPD is different than the city and county. HPD is a agency of the city and county, but HPD, they will fight this. The city and county will settle because it's too expensive. Hawaiian Dragon said, Big Island police got their hands full. I appreciate them. Right now, stuff been going off on Big Island. At least the news seems like it, with burglaries and that one dude that beat up that old lady. Nons, thanks for answering my settlement question. Lily Grinder, just saw a picture of the guy. He was huge, nothing but muscle. And SA muscle is strong. He was, I imagine you mean South African muscle is strong. He did. So I did hear a comment from a dude that rolls with him at the gym. So I knew so based on the comments that I've read of people that say they knew him, seems like he was trained in martial arts, but he was a professional rugby player. I don't care who you are. If you're a rugby player, you got strong muscle. He was not overly huge. He was only 5'9" based on what I read online, but he's 220 at 5'9". So, and his arms were huge. You could see he was a big dude. So those punches hurt for sure. And then Pamela Perry says, maybe Blangiardi won't settle. You know, Blangiardi doesn't have anything to do with it. That's what I mean. The city and county has legal. Legal will take care of it. So in closing, because we're just hitting an hour now, I just wanted to say, as of now, the 911 call only created more questions for the family and more sadness for the family. This has not changed anything for the use of force. LYNDANI MYENI was not killed for burglary. He was not killed for taking his shoes off. He was not killed for having cultural differences. He was not killed for being black. LYNDANI MYENI was shot because he would not stop punching that officer. The multiple officers. Police officers do not shoot to kill. That's not real. And I've heard people say they shoot to kill. They don't shoot to kill. But they're not going to shoot you in the arm or the leg or the foot. You can't train that way. First of all, you try shooting something with a pistol as small as a hand. Shoot the gun out of their hand. Shoot their leg. That's not real. Police officers are liable for every bullet that they send downrange. You try to shoot somebody and it misses that target, wherever it hits behind that target, which might I say 300 yards, you are responsible for. So whether it's stance-directed shooting or it's sight picture, you're shooting for center mass. Because that's what stops. You shoot until it stops. Too many people and too many police officers have died after shooting a suspect with a fatal wound. And I'm going to say that again. Too many officers and too many victims have died after The suspect had been shot with a fatal wound. Blood has a stroke, meaning it has a cycle. Everybody's stroke rates are different, how long it takes for blood to go through the body. But you can get shot and die from your wound a week later, a day later, an hour later, or a minute later. Too many victims and policemen have drawn their weapon, have died after a policeman had shot the suspect, and the suspect continued to shoot or continued to stab or continued to assault that person. It would be the equivalent of that what is it called? Micaiah Bryant situation. If right when she went to stab that girl, remember the officer shot her? If right when she went to stab, the officer shot her, she dropped. He shot until she stopped. Picture now her going to stab the girl and him shooting her once and then pulling his gun back and seeing and assessing if it was going to stop her. Meanwhile, she stabs the girl. So he shoots her again and it hits her right in the lungs, but she's still standing. Stabs her again. So he shoots her again in the other lung. She's still stabbing. All those wounds being fatal, she falls over and dies 15 minutes later while the police are giving CPR. But that girl that got stabbed still dies. That's why policemen are trained to shoot to stop the threat. And the highest chance of hitting your threat and stopping it is to shoot center mass, because we don't allow for collateral damage. This is not the military. There is no such thing as collateral damage. If you kill somebody you're not supposed to kill behind someone, the department is liable. Not the officer, and he shouldn't be. The city will be sued for that. And the officer might get charges for reckless endangerment or for manslaughter. We saw that actually in the Breonna Taylor shooting. The officer shot rounds and they went into the neighbor's apartment. And he got charged for every one of those bullets, because every time he pulled that trigger, it was a reckless use of force that could have injured somebody that was uninvolved. And that's why officers are very, very consistent and very selective in where they shoot. It's center mass. And it's center mass of what they can see. So I want you to think about this for a second. You can see the badge behind me. Right now, a police officer is trained. If this badge was trying to attack me with a knife, officer would shoot right here. Because that's center mass, right? But what if there was a wall and the badge was hiding behind a wall, and that's all, and they were just peeking out? Let's say this is the suspect's eye, and he's peeking around a wall with a gun. If this was all they could see, now this becomes center mass. See what I'm saying? So just because this is the suspect, if you can see all the suspect, you're shooting for the center. Because if you miss a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, you're good. A little bit up, a little bit down, you're good. You still hit the target. But if all you see is this, that center mass moves over to right here. So that's how police officers are trained to shoot. We do not even train in the range with targets shaped like men or like a human. In the range, you shoot targets that are just circles or squares, because they don't train officers to shoot people. They train officers to shoot threats. If a dog was mauling a baby, the officer would shoot at center mass. The other thing you got to think about is if there's people behind him, right? So if this is the suspect, but there's a person standing on this side behind him, the officer probably is going to shoot center mass over here. Because if he shoots here and misses and the bullet goes through and hits the person behind him, now he just killed or hurt somebody. So that's not okay. And they try to train that out of you in the police academy. So these are all things that they think about and they train against. And the training is very good at the Honolulu Police Department. Whether or not the officers train on their own after that or keep up with the training is up to them. And I think those are changes that are valid complaints that you can make on the police department. They should train their officers more. But that comes down to budget, folks. taxes have to be raised for that because you have to pay for range time, instructors, bullets, and more officers to cover the officers who now are on training and not watching their beat. That's why in response to defund the police, I say we need to double their budgets. We need to train them better. We need to pay them better. We need to expect more out of them. But they want that too. So, having said all that, I hope this sheds light on the situation for use of force from an ex-officer's perspective. And I hope this clarifies why none of the things that have transpired lately change anything in this case. So I'll take one last look before I head out. Wow, they went off. Wow, there was a lot more than I thought. Holy cow. Bryant Paul says, that is total nonsense. Where have you learned that? Come on, my friend. Every shoot is to kill. Wow. Well, I already addressed that. The Corporation Counsel serves as the chief legal advisor and legal representative of the mayor, the city council, and the city agencies, and all the other officers and employees of the city. Yep. Corp Counsel. Wow, Pamela, you know a lot about that. That's exactly right. Brian Paul, how can you die if you have a fatal wound? That was never a fatal wound. Then it was never a fatal wound. If you died a week after the wound was not fatal, you're totally wrong. Okay. I don't know what to say. If I shoot you and you die from your wound in 1 minute, 15 minutes, or 15 days, it was a fatal wound. Sorry, bro. Okay. Okay, BT says, all I can say is when Ish goes down, you only have split seconds to react. Easy to Monday quarterback, or if you feel you can do better, HPD is hiring. Roger that, BT. That's why even if a person dies way later, the charge changes to murder. Correct, Cynthia. Bryant Paul's point is that if the wound is not fatal, if the person leaves the scene, it is not fatal. That's completely wrong. But I understand if that's what you believe, that makes sense, those other comments you said, but that's wrong. I don't know what else to say about that one, so I'll leave that one alone. Cynthia said, Pamela, no sense arguing. You're right about that. YO. What's up, YO? You guys are funny. So Sean says, I'm confused concerning whose jurisdiction this case falls into now. It's just city and county. So this still just falls in city and county. State of Hawaii, I'll say that. Now, the prosecutor's office will investigate the police officers because that's what you do in a police shooting. But that's still what it is. Still going to be state. So, listen, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. You gave me an hour and 15 minutes of your time. I had a blast. I enjoyed connecting with you guys, answering any question you have. If you have any other questions about this, go ahead and shoot me a DM or an IM, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can even leave stuff in the comments here. And I try to read all the comments. Sometimes some slip through, but I try to read them all and answer any questions that I can. Don't forget, Patreon members, tomorrow, 5 p.m. Hawaii time, we're going to do our book club for week 8, I believe, chapters 11 and 12. I got the notes already posted up on Patreon, so go check them out. If you want to get into it early, be my guest. But I will see you guys tomorrow. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, head on over to my patreon.com/Dyke Korenic. There's a link in the bio or in the description, or you can go to my link tree and find it there as well. And sign up in any amount and join the book club. We can go through Sunny Sky Shady Characters together. Love you guys. Aloha. And I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.